Death Stranding is the upcoming Hideo Kojima game that everyone's already hyped about. And why wouldn't they be? Kojima is a brilliant game maker with an astonishing career and more impact on the industry than any game maker would dare wish to have. And apparently, he's given a lot of freedom by Sony to create something visionary. Yet the game is still a pretty puzzling and vague one. We have no idea about what kind of game it's going to be. And that's not just regarding the gameplay, but also the story. Besides the clues and hints we got from Kojima and other Koji Pro members, we only got 2 trailers. They were great, with great cinematic approach as you would expect from Kojima, but still they were pretty bizarre. The reveal trailer literally shows a naked man with an umbilical cord that's connected to a baby, who disappears moments after the man wakes up, but still we think that these trailers actually present some strong clues about the plot. If you're a Kojima fan, then you know that he loves to put subtle hints in his trailers or tweets, interviews, etc. He loves to watch people speculate about his work. So in this theory, we are trying to decipher the clues and hints left by Kojima and his team in the trailer or even in their statements. It's important to note a few things before we start. Firstly, this is just a theory. It's largely based on speculations and interpretations, so there's a good chance that we are completely wrong about everything. Kojima himself stated that the trailers have misleads that he put there intentionally, so it's totally fine if you don't agree. You're welcome to share your opinion in the comments below. Secondly, we will divide the theory into chapters, so we can discuss each speculation in enough detail and make our expectations and interpretations for the game as clear as possible. Finally, this video may contain spoilers for MGS 1, 2, 3, 4, The Phantom Pain. It also may contain minor spoilers for the movie 2001: Space Odyssey, and potential spoilers for Death Stranding, so watch on your own risk. Enjoy. Death Stranding's reveal trailer immediately raises a lot of questions. One of those questions is the protagonist. Who is he? What's his name? What's his role in the world of the game? This concern about him is largely due to the fact that the protagonist is actually performed by Norman Reedus, the beloved actor from The Walking Dead. This is not the first collaboration between Reedus and Kojima, as they were going to work together before in the cancelled reboot of the popular survival horror series Silent Hill. The main concern with the game protagonist would actually be, in our opinion, his name. Why would his name be of any significance, you may ask? This comes from the interview that Kojima did with Jeff Keighley right after the reveal of the game. Let's watch this part of the interview.
Well, it looks amazing. Can you tell us anything, this character that Norman plays, who is the character? Is he playing himself or is the character have a name?
これはノーマン自身なんですか、このキャラクター。それともノーマンが違うキャラクターを演じてるんですか。
ノーマンが演じる感じです。
It's Norman playing a character.
Can you tell us the name of the character?
そのキャラクターの名前を教えてください。
まだ
Not yet, not yet.
Well,
Now, why would Kojima hide the name of Reedus' character? Some would argue that he just doesn't want to reveal too much about the plot this early. But how would be the name of any significance to the plot? It's not like the game is going to reveal an important part of the plot, or is it? To understand what we mean by this, you have to watch a part of another interview. This time it's an interview for Reedus at Comic-Con.
Like, all right. And then he goes, and I go, playing me? And he goes, no, they'll be you. And I was like, I'm just doing whatever he says.
This seems bizarre and unexplained, raising more questions than answers, especially that the situation sounds awfully similar to the Venom Snake twist that Kojima presented in Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. But that's just at first. After some thought, we actually found that this was a pretty strong clue about the identity of Reedus' character. Another strong hint comes from Kojima himself, from the clues he gave us in his tweets and statements about the game. It's fairly obvious that the human evolution is going to be a major theme of the new title. In fact, Kojima has been hinting and talking about evolution for a long time, even in his previous work, like Metal Gear Solid 5, where the new Metal Gear model was actually named Sahelanthropus, which is the name of the first ever humans to actually walk upright. So it's no secret that Kojima has a huge interest in evolution. The new studio's mascot is also evidence for that fact, as it's named Ludens. And so is the new tagline of the studio, which is From Homo sapiens to Homo Ludens. These strong hints are backed by words from Kojima himself, as he talked about how the logo movie of his new studio is more or less a metaphor of the humans evolving from the single-celled organisms that used to live underwater to the intelligent advanced creatures that are us now. The logo itself presents more evidence for this, as the logo, according to Kojima and Yuji Shinkawa, is designed to resemble both a medieval knight's helmet and an advanced spacesuit. The trailer itself also presents this idea, as Redis looks to resemble the look of a primitive caveman, but when you look closely, you'll actually see that he is equipped with some advanced tools, like the handcuffs and the dog tags that have some pretty modern physical equations carved into them. So, you can safely assume that the game is going to feature evolution as one of its main themes. But what does this have to do with the name of the character? Since we concluded that the game is going to discuss this, then wouldn't it be logical to assume that Redis is going to play the first, or at least one of the first, human beings? We know that some of you, if not all, would see this as a long shot, but bear with us for just a moment. We previously mentioned that Redis stated that the players are going to actually be him in the game. Also, Kojima said that the mascot, Ludens, is meant to represent all of us, the players. What do Redis, us, and Kojima have in common? The answer might be that we are all gamers, or at least interested in games somehow. But then that leads us to the tagline of the studio. We are Homo Ludens. This sentence translates to, we are those who play. So, Kojima is obviously stating that we, the players, are the next state in human evolution. This leads us to the next thing we have in common with Redis, Kojima, and the members of Kojima Productions. We are all human beings. From this we can go back to assuming that Redis is going to play the first human on Earth. And what's the first name that comes to mind when this is mentioned? Yes, it's Adam. We can see a lot of you objecting now, and asking questions like, why Adam? Where's the proof? And what about the baby? Or the fact that the technology that Redis has in the trailer is clearly advanced, too advanced for him to be the first human being on Earth. We will come to the baby in a bit, just let us focus on justifying why Adam. In a tweet, the official account of Kojima Productions hinted at the possibility that the game might have a heroine character, but we don't have any 100% solid information about this heroine. But it's already possible that we already saw what she looks like. On Christmas Eve, Kojima tweeted, "Happy Holidays," along with a photo of a woman that's clearly drawn by Yuji Shinkawa. The photo is irrelevant to Christmas and can't be related to the specific context in any way. Or at least that's what it seems like at first. The tweet is actually a hint about the woman's name. Notice that the photo was tweeted on Christmas Eve? It can hardly be explained as just a coincidence, especially that we already cleared that it's totally irrelevant to the holidays. If that's actually our first look at the female protagonist of our upcoming game, then there's really a good chance that her name is going to be Eve. And since our heroine is Eve, then our hero must be Adam. And here, you should go back to the trailer, as it actually hints at this heroine already existing in the context of the events that the trailer shows. Redis, or Adam as we're going to call him from now on, was clearly handcuffed, but the handcuffs were only tied around one hand, leaving the other one free. That's kinda weird, because that makes the handcuffs totally pointless. But what if the handcuffs were not there to restrain him? Instead, they are there to tie him to someone, possibly Eve? But that raises a question. If that really is her tied to him, then where is she? Where did she go? The answer is actually simple. She disappeared, just as the baby. Notice that Adam's body in the trailer was covered in handprints. Some of these were created by the disappearing baby, but the rest of them, which clearly belong to someone bigger, are left unexplained. So it's quite possible that it's the handprints of our heroine, Eve. Another thing that would back this up is the beach where the events of the trailer take place. Many have speculated that this beach is actually a real beach in Iceland, which strongly resembles the one in the trailer, and it's likely that a part of the game might take place in Iceland, because the song that Kojima used in the trailer is performed by an Icelandic band called Low Roar. Kojima has also visited Iceland a couple of years ago. The interesting part is that there's a famous legend about this beach which tells the tale of a husband who his wife was kidnapped and taken away from him by two trolls. An important thing to note is that by Adam, you actually mean the famous biblical figure himself, not just a reference to him. It's no secret that Kojima showed fascination with the biblical creation story before, in games like MGS 3 and 4. So it's possible that he would revisit that area, especially that it fits perfectly with his idea of evolution. We believe that Kojima is going to introduce an alternative creation story, where he's going to merge both evolution and creation together, for the purposes of the plot. The whole scene also slightly resembles the painting of Adam and Eve by the Russian artist Pavel Popov. But that still leaves a lot of questions unanswered, like what is this alternative story and how different is it from the biblical narrative? And where do the baby or the dog tags or even the strands and the cords fit within with all of this? And that is what we are going to discuss in the following parts of the theory. Let's start with the baby. In the Bible, Adam and Eve have two children after they descend to our earth, Cain and Abel. According to the Bible, Cain commits the first murder in history by killing his brother. But what does this have to do with the baby? If you could recall, Kojima hinted at the possibility of a second baby actually existing. In a tweet, he stated that the baby in the trailer is called Lu number 2, and in the following one he stated that there's another baby called Lu number 1. He did not reveal anything about this second baby and what's his role in the game, but he surely did everything he could to make us notice the existence of this baby. He literally made it sit between him and Kinji Yano during an entire episode of HideoTube for no apparent reason. Some people speculated that the first unseen baby is evidence of the game featuring some kind of a multiverse. They backed this by one of the dog tags with the equations, which had an equation called the Dirac equation, a famous equation that describes the spin of subatomic particles like electrons and quarks. It depends on both the principles of quantum mechanics and the theory of relativity. People thought that this specific equation might be hinting at a multiverse existing within the world of the game, and that Lu number 1 and Lu number 2 are simply versions of the same baby in two parallel universes. But we have a simpler explanation. In the previous part, we agreed that our heroes are possibly Adam and Eve, and that naturally leads to the two babies being their sons according to the Bible, Cain and Abel. But why was Adam crying when he held the baby, and where did the first baby go? The answer to the second question is simple. He disappeared, just like the second baby and possibly Eve. For the first question though, the answer is not that simple, and we are going to discuss it in part 4 of our theory. There might not be much concrete evidence for this like there is for the previous part, but this would actually fit perfectly, not only with our theory, but also with the idea of evolution that we agreed it's going to be a huge chunk of the game. How is that, you may ask? Well, that's what we are going to discuss in the next part. We've established before that Death Stranding is going to feature evolution as one of the game's main themes. This idea comes especially from the taglines of the studios and what Kojima said about this game, like when he talked about sticks and ropes for example, as he mentioned that sticks were mankind's first tools, similarly to the idea that was presented in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. That idea has caused people to immediately link the game to Ludens, the studio mascot. Most people were convinced that this mascot isn't just that. They believed that he was going to be a character in the game, and that Norman Reedus is actually the face under his mask. This speculation can be easily backed by everything Kojima and his team members have said about Ludens, and the ideas he was meant to present. But the one problem is Kojima himself has denied more than once that Ludens is going to be an actual character in the final game. So what does this mean? Some people who are still convinced that Ludens is a part of the game would argue that Kojima is simply lying to cover up this truth. But we don't think so. Kojima is known for loving to mislead people and giving them sensitive clues and information that will completely change your expectations for his work if you misunderstood them. And he usually did that on purpose, but he never lied to do that. Even with the famous Venom snake twist, Kojima was fairly honest about the identity of him from the start. In an interview, Kojima was asked about the identity of the third man that Kaz asks about him in an MGSV trailer, to which he replies that the third man was actually Kojima himself, and this was actually true, as that third man turned out to be Venom Snake, who is actually everyone who played the games and took the role of Big Boss. So, simply, Kojima was the one playing at the time. He told the truth without telling it, and that might be similar to what he's trying to do with Ludens. If our assumption about Adam and Eve is right, then the name Homo Ludens isn't just a cool name that Kojima came up with for the purposes of the ideas and concepts of his new studio. It must be of some significance to the game itself. So how would that be? To answer this, you have to watch a part of the interview with Jeff at E3 2016, which took place before the game reveal.
You put out last week where a lot of people were wondering, like, oh, who's the character there? And people were like, is that Norman Reedus? Who is it? Can you tell us anything about who that character is?
あれはですね、骸骨が入っていると皆さん思われてたんで、宇宙服の中に。そうではなくて、宇宙服の中に骸骨のマスクをかぶった人が入っているっていうことで、あれは誰でもなくて、あれが皆さんであり僕らである。それがルーデンスっていうことですね。
So everyone was thinking that inside this helmet there was this skull. However, it was not a skull, but a person wearing a skull. Now, who's this person? That's everyone. That's us. That's the users. That's each one of us wearing that mask inside that skull mask. That's what I wanted to show.
So, we all know that Homo Ludens basically means those who play. So in a sense, it means gamers. And since we already established that Kojima thinks Homo Ludens represent the next stage in human evolution, it's safe to assume that Ludens is meant to represent all humans. This would not be unexpected of Kojima. He did do something similar to this with Venom Snake. But what does that have to do with the baby? Did you notice that the baby is actually called Lu number 2? Lu is obviously short for Ludens, but why the numbering? Seems weird, doesn't it? And why is the baby called Ludens in the first place? There is an explanation that they came up with, and it actually fits with the theory surprisingly well. The babies are called Ludens unnumbered because Ludens is going to be the name of the new human species that Norman, or Adam, is going to start in the game, and so the numbering is justified. They are the first humans or the first Ludens to be born and raised on our Earth. But that would raise more questions. If they are the first humans, so what is Adam? Why are they numbered? Who numbered them? These are questions that we are going to discuss in the next part of our theory. In the Bible, Adam and Eve are sent to Earth because they have sinned. They are sent to Earth as a punishment, after they have eaten the forbidden apple. That idea of sin and punishment can actually be consistent with our theory and the game. Near the end of Death Stranding reveal trailer is one of the most mysterious parts of it, which is the 5 strange figures in the sky. Many people have speculated about this part. It's quite puzzling. Norman looks at them in a look that appears to reflect anger and fear. Some people have compared the scene to the 5 god hands from the popular manga Berserk, and almost all people agree on one thing. This scene shows that these 5 figures have some sort of power, and they are responsible for sending Norman's character to this place, most likely as some sort of a punishment. Does that sound familiar? If this is true, then it backs the idea of Adam even more. But what is he being punished for? There are a few possibilities, but it's impossible to be sure about it, since we don't have enough information. We have a theory that we think can be likely, but we will save it for the end of this part. For now, let's focus on the kind of punishment that Adam might be getting. In an interview, Kojima states that the title refers to when whales are washed up on the seashore and in context of the game signifies something otherworldly being stranded in our world. Doesn't that strongly suggest that Norman's character is likely to have come from another world? And not just from another world, it's from another world to our world, stranded here, unable to go back where he belongs. Isn't that awfully similar to the biblical story? But there's another, rather interesting part of this idea of punishment. The photo of Eve that we discussed shows that the woman is wearing a fairly modern dress, which would contradict with the theory of her and our hero being the first humans on Earth, right? Wrong. Did you ever notice that all of the creatures in the trailer have cords or strands connected to them? Even Norman did. He was connected to his baby. But the weird thing is that right after the baby disappears and Regis stands up, it's obvious that he doesn't even have a belly button, so he can't really have an umbilical cord. What does that mean? Kojima stated more than once that he wanted to change the concept of death in video games. He specifically said, in arcade games, you have this notion of dying, putting another quarter in and coming back. That hasn't changed in the 35 years that I've been making games. In this game, life and death will be part of that, but I want to give a different twist to that notion. From that information, there is a possibility that some of you might find strange, but bear with us for just a second. We think that Adam and Eve are immortals. Think of it. All the creatures have umbilical cords attached to them. All of them are stranded. Kojima wants to change that concept of death, and he would relate that to the plot. So what if, in the world of the game, you actually need this cord to die? What if you need to be death stranded? If Redis, or Adam, doesn't have a belly button, then he can't have an umbilical cord, and he can't die. He's an immortal. Another interesting detail is the cross-shaped scar. His belly button appears to have been surgically removed, on purpose. Maybe these figures somehow did this to remove his strands and deprive him of the possibility to die, and maybe to take away some kind of power away from him. But we will discuss this theory thing in the detail in the following part of the theory. This would actually fit with the idea of evolution, because what would fit best with the game showing the humans evolving than a protagonist who lived to see all of this evolution taking place? The idea even fits with the lyrics of the song I'll Keep Coming that was used in the trailer. But if that's true, then what about the babies? Why are they called Lu number 1 or Lu number 2 if their parents are the actual first humans? It's simple, because their parents are not the first humans, or at least not the first Ludens. Their sons are. If Adam and Eve are immortal, they would be lacking one of the most basic characteristics of human beings. They do not die. So their sons are the actual first humans, the actual first Ludens. In the trailer, Norman holds the baby tight and starts crying. Why does he cry? Maybe it's because he knows that the baby is going to disappear? No, because when the baby actually disappears, the expression on Norman's face is one of surprise. He wouldn't be surprised if he knew that this was going to happen. Instead, maybe he was crying because he knew that his son, unlike him, is going to eventually die, and he will be there to watch it. In fact, he would be there to watch his entire offspring die over millions and millions of years, while he stays alive to suffer. Maybe that's part of the punishment. Kojima did explore this idea of immortality being a curse instead of a gift, with the characters like Grey Fox, Fortune, and Vamp. They were all sick of being unable to die and find peace. Maybe Kojima is going to revisit that idea, taking a slightly different approach this time. We can now start discussing the reasons for this punishment. What did Redis or Adam do? What's his sin? In the Bible, the fruit or the apple that Adam and Eve ate under the temptation of Satan is the fruit of wisdom, the fruit of knowledge. Satan tells Eve that if she eats this fruit, she will have the knowledge of God. In the trailer, Adam is shown to be wearing 6 dog tags. There's not much you can deduce about the dog tags from the trailer, but it wasn't long until the official Kojima Productions website published the game cover, which was high enough in resolution that the carvings on the dog tags became readable. And it turned out to have 2 of the most important and most famous physical equations known to man, the Schwarzschild-Radius equation and the Dirac equation. The first one is an equation that determines the size that, if reduced to, a spherical object will turn into a black hole. That led a lot of people to think that the game would involve black holes somehow, mainly as a way to time travel. But regardless of this, there's another possible explanation that might fit with the biblical narrative and our theory. Each of these equations were a breakthrough in physics. They shaped a lot of our modern understanding of the universe. They were the source of mankind's wisdom. So maybe what happened is that Adam tried to steal these equations and use them, which caused his expulsion from his world. And instead of ripping him from his knowledge, these 5 beings in the sky decided to leave it to him as a part of his punishment. They left him on purpose to guide the evolution of mankind, or in this case, the Homo Ludens, to complete the punishment. This idea is also similar to the story of Prometheus, who stole fire and decided to give it to mankind, which led him being punished by Zeus. Interestingly, Prometheus' punishment involved immortality, as he was chained between two mountains, left for a giant eagle to eat his liver each day, while he grows a new one during the night. Without a chance of a death that would end this punishment, Kojima did show some interest in Greek mythology before. In MGS3, the river that Big Boss goes through during the boss battle of the Sorrow strongly resembles the River Styx, the river that dead people will cross to reach the other world. Also, the new game engine that Kojima finally revealed for his game at PSX is called Decima, which is the Roman name for the Greek god Lachesis, who measured the threads of people's lives, literal strands of life, which is interesting on its own, but it also strongly hints that mythology will be an influence on the game. Another thing is, interestingly enough, the Bible states that the devil seduced Eve into eating the forbidden fruit by telling her that God won't let her die if she does. She will become an immortal, which fits perfectly with our theory. The second trailer that we got at TGA actually hints at this idea of punishment. This hint is the upside down rainbow, because in the Bible, the upside down rainbow is considered a sign of God's wrath at humans, and this can actually be linked to the idea of wisdom and knowledge, but more details on that later. Going back to evolution, the idea of some higher beings guiding our evolution has been introduced before. In the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, some higher beings guide the evolution of apes until they evolve into humans, using the monolith. And it's no secret that the movie is most likely going to be a huge influence on our game, since its main theme is also the evolution of mankind. But that still leaves the other trailer a complete mystery, right? There's another baby, dead soldiers walking, tanks and planes that have umbilical cords attached to them, and a scary looking villain. What does it all mean? How does it fit with this theory? Well, that leads us to the next part. At TGA, Kojima revealed a second trailer for his upcoming game. The trailer confirmed Mads and Del Toro's involvement, finally confirming the rumors about them. And while one would think that a second trailer would help make things a bit clearer and would present some more clues that we can use to get a better idea about the game and its story, the trailer was as puzzling as the first one, especially that the world looks almost nothing like what was shown in the first trailer, except for some little details here and there. But after some thought, the trailer actually does help to form a much clearer picture of the plot, but in a very subtle and clever way, as you would expect from Kojima, who himself stated that the trailer does have some misleads. We'll start to analyze some of the details of that trailer and put the pieces in place to form the larger picture, and the first thing we would like to discuss is Del Toro's role in the game. The trailer starts off with Del Toro walking fast like he's running away from something. He looks pretty exhausted. He has similar handcuffs to the ones that Norman was wearing. He's also carrying a strange looking artificial wound thing. All these details seem to be puzzling, but after watching the trailer a few times, we started to have a pretty good idea about what it all means. Del Toro has a badge on his suit that reads Bridges and a map of the United States, with what looks like a web all over it, and underneath it says United Cities of America. What does that mean? What is Bridges? It seems like it's some kind of a company, and most likely it's some kind of a traveling or maybe telecommunications company, as the name implies connection. While that still doesn't give us enough information about Del Toro's role and his relation to that company, the special version of the trailer actually does. At PSX, Kojima presented another version of the trailer, which had different music than the first one. This time it was another song by Low Roar, the same band that sang I'll Keep Coming, the song used in the reveal trailer. The song is called Easy Way Out. The lyrics of the song present some good clues about Del Toro and his role. The mistakes I've made, it can be turned around. That part of the lyrics suggests that Del Toro did something wrong. It's most likely related to the Bridges organization and the baby in this artificial room he's carrying. But how is that? On the badge, United States map seems to be missing a part of it, specifically the part where Washington DC is located. Also, this web on the badge seemed to originate from Washington itself, and the map looks sort of bent at that area. So what does this mean? At first glance, some would think that maybe the US's name is different in the world of the game. It's a possibility since Kojima already stated that the world of the game is different than ours, but that's not right, because in the trailer, the dead soldiers who are connected to Mats clearly have the letters US on their backs. But what does it mean? We think that it's a name of some project that this organization Bridges is making, and most likely Del Toro is a scientist working on that project. Do you remember the equations on the dog tags? Maybe humans use some of these equations, this knowledge, to create a way to connect American cities together, which explains the name, through some form of wormhole, and that explains the big chunk missing from the map on Del Toro's badge, and the web that originates from there. Maybe this is where the wormhole is located. And probably, this project went horribly wrong, which would explain the song Kojima decided to use in the trailer. But that still leaves the baby in the artificial womb. What's with him? And why does Mads' character seem to want that child? First of all, why is this baby in an artificial womb? Why isn't it a real woman pregnant with him? Well, the answer can be because this baby was artificially designed or modified. In a game where human evolution is the main theme, it makes sense that Kojima would show humans trying to perfect themselves and create a better and stronger generation. Especially that in the world of the game, the technology presented seems to be very advanced, which suggests that in this world, modified humans could easily exist. But there's something else that might back this idea up. In some recent tweets, Kojima said that he met an actress whom he loved for a long time, and they signed some contract, which strongly suggests that she is going to be a character in this game. But who is this actress? There is some evidence that say this actress is Lindsay Wagner, known by the nickname the Bionic Woman. Remember, before Mads Mikkelsen was announced to be part of the new title, Kojima was already hinting at him, tweeting about famous movies and TV shows he was in, like Hannibal. He have been doing the same with Lindsay for some time now, and another clue is that Kojima stated he met the actress before he left California and returned to Japan. Lindsay Wagner actually lives in California. So who will she play then? Some people argue that she is going to be the new heroine character, but that's most likely not true, because the woman in the painting we saw seems younger than Lindsay Wagner. She is most likely going to play another important character, and being famous for her role as the Bionic Woman, she might play a similar role here. Some kind of modified human being, a cyborg or something like that, which would back the idea of modified human beings a thing within the world of Death Stranding. Remember that Kojima did show interest in this idea of artificially modified and enhanced human beings in previous work, with almost all of MGS characters, especially cyborgs, like Grey Fox and Raiden. Another thing is that Kojima said in a recent interview that the new HBO series, Westworld, follows an exact theory of his game design. Westworld is a TV series starring Anthony Hopkins and is created by Jonathan Nolan. The series is about a futuristic theme park that is occupied by humanoid AI robots. And while Kojima might have been talking about his game design in general, this still might suggest that Kojima was hinting that his game will also contain some sort of artificially created beings. With that said, we can go back to the baby. Why does Mads want that baby? Maybe he wants to use him as a weapon of some sort. Also, it's most probable that Del Toro or this Bridges organization are the ones who created him. But apparently, this also went wrong, and there's evidence of that we'll discuss in the next part of our theory. But for now, we will talk about another part. According to the Bible, trying to acquire the knowledge of God was a sin. This knowledge was forbidden because humans are not worthy of it, and if our theory is right, something similar would happen in the game. If humans did use the knowledge that Adam stole, then it would eventually destroy them. It would eventually go wrong, and that, as we said, explains the song choice for the second trailer. Interestingly, the lyrics of the song actually kind of tie up with our theory about Adam. One part says, "I went 1 for 1 before casting out." Casting out actually means to be expelled or forced out, and "I went 1 for 1 might imply how he lost his place in the world of the gods in exchange for that knowledge. This idea of knowledge being a sin can also be consistent with our theory. It could simply mean that the gods left the knowledge for humans as another part of their punishment. If we are right about the Bible being a huge influence on the game, then another thing that would support this idea and be consistent with it is the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. They are commonly known as death, famine, war, and conquest. And I think we can all agree that all of these things are represented in the second trailer, maybe using the knowledge led humans to their apocalypse? There's more to this idea of the apocalypse, especially concerning the villain character, but we will discuss this in the next part of our theory. With that said, this still leaves most of the second trailer unexplained, like Mads' character and his goal and plan. And why does he want the baby? Also, what about the plans and the tank and the skeleton soldiers? Well, this leads us to the next part of our theory. While the TGA trailer for Death Stranding has a lot of mysterious and vague parts, the most puzzling part would be the villain, the character that Mads Mikkelsen will be playing. There's almost no clue about his intentions, his goals, or his plans, and we only got a little hint about his powers and the kind of tools and weapons he will be using. But when you think about the big picture and put the speculations that we made about the game together with the second trailer, you can get a pretty solid idea about it. Let's start with his powers and abilities. In the trailer, Mads is connected through 4 umbilical cords to 4 dead skeleton soldiers, walking and carrying World War II weapons. Some people might argue that this means the game will feature time travel, and they might back this up with the equations found on the 6 dog tags, but that can easily be proven wrong. If they actually use time travel, then why did the soldiers, tank, and planes look that old and worn out? Also, the soldiers have already turned into skeletons, which means they have been dead for a really long time. But then, what does that mean? If you could recall, Mads had a strange black, oily liquid on his face and hands, the same liquid that we saw the invisible hands leaving in the first trailer, and moments after he released the 4 soldiers. His face went back to normal, and this liquid disappeared. That might imply that Mads is giving the dead soldiers some kind of energy to keep them alive. Maybe this strange liquid is just what blood looks like in the world of the game, and maybe Mads can form a sort of death strands to connect and to control the tank. Another thing that would back this idea is that tank had an umbilical cord coming out of it, and connected to the other dead soldiers. Moments after that, the same liquid started coming out of the tank. Remember that the tanks had these weird looking octopus-like creatures inside of it, so maybe the umbilical cord doesn't connect the soldiers to the tank, but to this creature, who's also giving them this energy to keep them alive and able to still walk the earth. But then what about the cords that were coming out from the planes? What if, in the world of the game, this is the way you should use to control objects, vehicles, etc.? This can be backed up by what Kojima stated about the stick and the rope, when he said that mankind's first tools were their sticks, which they used to keep dangers away, but also they used ropes to keep valuable things close to them. If that's all true, then who exactly is that villain, and what's his purpose? If we are right about the idea of punishment and the protagonist being Adam, then it would only be logical to assume that the antagonist will be a god or the devil, who is, according to the Bible, the archenemy of humanity and the root of all evil. The idea of the devil seems to have more evidence backing it. For instance, the trailer shows that Mads' presence brings some kind of overall evilness and death to wherever he is. Also, Del Toro seemed to know that Mads was there after he smelled something, and it appears to be an unpleasant odor. Knowing that it is largely believed that the devil brings hated odors with him, like the smell of sulfur and rotten flesh, we can assume that this is also the case here. With that said, we can go back to our idea about the 4 horsemen, and who are supposed to bring destruction to Earth with the apocalypse, and they are loyal to the devil's plans. It doesn't really seem like much of a coincidence that Mads has 4 soldiers connected to him. Maybe that was Kojima's way of hinting at the 4 horsemen, along with the destruction and war that can be seen throughout the trailer. And in case we are right, then we might already know the antagonist's name too. Maybe his name is Lucifer. But what is his purpose then? To know this, we first have to discuss Adam and his goals as well. In the first trailer, Adam appears to be angry at these 5 figures, so maybe he is plotting revenge against them. Kojima's previous project was mostly about anger and the desire for revenge, so it's possible that he would revisit this idea. But how would he have his revenge on gods? Did you notice that Mads was connected to dead soldiers? Why is he using dead soldiers rather than alive ones? Why is his army an army of death? Maybe it's because Adam already formed some sort of connection with the living. Maybe he can form life strands? It might be that Adam decided to gather an army of all living humans and spend years waiting until they were finally advanced enough to come back at the gods. So the gods decided to send the devil to stop him and sabotage his plans. According to Kojima, connection will be a huge theme of the game, and what would imply this better than the main character connecting with all humans to gain strength? That would actually explain the doll that looks like Norman's character which appeared in the second trailer. It would make sense that humans idolized him and started modeling dolls, statues, and other things after him. He's like some sort of a prophet to them. Another interesting part of the idea of our antagonist being Satan himself is that he would have been the one who seduced Adam into stealing knowledge from the gods. Maybe out of jealousy and arrogance, similar to the Bible's story. Or maybe he had his own agenda. What if the devil seduced Adam to steal these equations, this knowledge, to have him create tools and weapons that he can use to fight the gods and overtake their world and places? That can be supported by the fact that the weapon Mads was carrying has the word black hole on it. Maybe Kojima wanted us to relate him between him and the equations? And that brings us to the baby. In the trailer, Del Toro was obviously running away from something or someone, and was probably Mads himself because he appeared to be afraid from the tanks and the dead soldiers who are clearly linked to Mads. And he had the same handcuffs that Norman had around his wrist in the reveal trailer, further supporting the idea of Mads being related to the 5 monolithic figures. This might be just the kind of strange they use at their world. Also, Mads was obviously looking for the baby, but why? As we stated, maybe he wanted to use him as some kind of a weapon in his war, and the trailer would actually support this idea pretty well. In the trailer, once the baby wakes up, he winks his right eye and presses his lips together. This specific part is shown in slow motion, indicating that Kojima wanted us to notice this. So what does it mean? In the Bible, specifically in Proverbs 16-30, it says the following: "Whoever winks with their eye is plotting perversity. Whoever purses their lips is bent on evil." Doesn't that feel awfully similar to what the baby did? And doesn't that strongly support that the Bible is going to be another influence on the game? That might mean that this baby will bring evil and destruction, and maybe that is indeed why Mads wanted him. After Mads pulls the doll towards him, it opens one eye, like the baby did, possibly indicating that the baby somehow was signaling Mads to make him aware that he is nearby, further supporting that he is evil. Also, when Del Toro connected himself to the baby, through this umbilical cord he had, it looked like he was somehow drawing energy from this baby, and this might explain why this artificial womb had 2 ports at it, one for drawing energy and one for giving it. Also, Del Toro looked like he knew what he was doing a mistake. He did it as a last resort after he knew, certainly, that Mads was already nearby and there was no other way to confront him. But what about the gods? What's their nature? What's the relation between them and Adam? Also, what about the gameplay? What are the implications of the idea of the sticks and ropes in the game? That brings us to the 7th and final chapter of our theory. The 5 figures in the sky are still a mystery, and while we can't really have solid ideas about them, we can still make some educated guesses about them and their relation to our protagonist, Adam. As we've mentioned before, Adam's scar suggests that the gods did some kind of operation on Adam, possibly to deprive him of some kind of power. This also suggests that Adam might have once been one of these gods, and once he committed his sin, his betrayal, they decided to deprive him of some powers and expel him from his world. Another interesting part of this would be the dog tags. Did you notice that there are 6 of them? Maybe these 5 figures became gods because each of them discovered one of these equations, and if Adam was one of them, then it makes sense that there are 6 dog tags. Also, that implies that Mads is also one of these gods, not necessarily the leader, but one of them, and maybe Kojima made us notice the word black hole on his weapon to make us relate between him and one specific equation. The first shield created this equation. Maybe he was the one who discovered it in the world of the game. But as we said, we don't have enough concrete information to deduce and speculate more about the 5 figures. So with that being said, we might move on to another topic, the gameplay. In an interview, Kojima stated that his game is an action game that will feel very familiar during the first couple of hours, but after that, players will realize that it's a completely different kind of game. He also stated that the players will be able to use the equivalents of sticks, guns, knives, etc. But they will also be able to use the equivalents of ropes. Putting the two statements together, we can deduce that, most likely, the rope mechanic is going to be introduced after the first couple of hours into the game. This might mean that during the first part of the game, we are going to be controlling Norman's character, fighting the gods, or the five figures, using sticks before they defeat us and send us to Earth. So the second part of the game will start, but how is the rope going to be introduced in this part? In the trailer, Redis is connected to his baby through an umbilical cord, and most likely, that cord is providing some kind of connection between them. Maybe we will use this connection to find them after their disappearance. This idea of the ropes meaning connection is strongly backed by what Kojima said about them. Kojima says he wants to create a new genre with this game, like he did with MGS. Maybe this is about the new rope mechanic. Maybe it's because Norman is immortal, that he will find out that using the rope is going to be more effective than using the stick when he fights these figures. It will be pretty similar to what he did with MGS, where using stealth was better and more rewarding than using assault. And that fits with our idea about his plans to connect to other humans and gather an army to fight the gods. But there is something strange about the second trailer. We already know that Norman's our protagonist and that we will be controlling him throughout the game. So who are we controlling during the scene with Mads and Del Toro? Norman is obviously not there. Maybe we will be controlling Del Toro himself, which suggests that this scene is going to be in the prologue of the game. And after this situation ends, we will go back and see the events that led to this unfold. Or maybe, and that is more likely, Redis or Adam can control or connect to other humans and see what they are doing through his connection with them. Maybe we will control various characters in the game through this special connection that Norman has to all humans. Kojima did something similar to this with the Phantom Pain, as we could control and play missions with members of Diamond Dogs. Maybe this will be the case here, but on a much grander scale. Unfortunately, we don't have enough information on the gameplay yet, and we are not sure how this is going to work, but we trust Kojima to introduce something revolutionary. This brings us to the end of our theory. We really hope you enjoyed it. Remember that this is all just speculations. We can easily be wrong about it all, so let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like the video and share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel for more theories. Thanks for watching.